It is that time of year again. The 2020 season has just come to a close, and during the excruciatingly long wait until the first race of the 2021 season, we can take this time to look back at what has been a very memorable 2020 season. So this is the second edition of my channel's annual F1 driver tier list, and basically I look at the seasons of each of the drivers on the 2020 grid and put their season's performance into 5 categories: amazing, great, good, average, and bad. And basically their performances in other seasons has no influence whatsoever. I'm just looking at this season specifically. With that out of the way, let's get into the video. Here is the F1 driver tier list. So I'm going to be looking at these drivers in reverse championship order. So that means we'll be starting with Williams driver Nicholas Latifi, who finished 21st in the championship with 0 points. So I'm going to put Nicholas into the average category. He hasn't really done anything too noteworthy this season, but to be fair to him, he's the only rookie on the grid, and he was driving the slowest car, which is the Williams, but then he got outqualified 17-0 by his teammate George Russell. So most of the time he's just been at the back, really hasn't done that much, but then he hasn't really disappointed because he's a rookie. I didn't really have any expectations for him. So yeah, I guess it's an average season, not really too good, not too bad, and that's why he's in the average category. Next up is Kevin Magnussen. He was 20th in the championship with 1 point, so I'm going to put him into the good category. I think he did just about everything he could with the Haas. It's a pretty atrocious car to drive, the second slowest on the grid, just behind the Williams, and yeah, that's why he was only able to pick up 1 point. He had a pretty impressive drive in at the Hungarian Grand Prix to get that single point. Pretty good strategy call from Haas to help him achieve that, and yeah, not the best way to go out. After his, I'm pretty sure, 7 years in F1, he would have liked to have been fighting a bit higher up in the field. I think Magnussen is definitely one of those more underrated drivers. He's gone under the radar in the last few years due to driving an uncompetitive Haas, but nonetheless, a decent career in F1, so that is Kevin Magnussen in the good category. Next up, Romain Grosjean, Magnussen's teammate. I'm also going to put him into the good category. There was really very little, between these two Haas drivers this season. Grosjean was able to score 2 points with his 9th place finish at the Eiffel Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. Again, it did all he could with that car. There's really not much more performance I think they could have gotten out of it. We've always knew that Roman has had this speed. He can be a little incident prone at times, but overall I think he did have a good season. I think definitely a better one than 2019. Yeah, we obviously can't talk about Romain Grosjean without talking about that horrific accident that he had at the Bahrain Grand Prix. I still find it amazing that he actually survived the crash. It's really a testament to the safety of these cars that he was able to walk away from that crash. And yeah, it's a bit of a shame that he couldn't get a proper farewell race, but nonetheless, he has had a fairly successful career with 10 podiums in 8 years in the sport, so that is pretty good. So that is Romain Grosjean. Next up, we have George Russell, who managed to score 2 points during the season. And I think that George is definitely a much better driver than the results suggest. He is being held back by that Williams car, which, like I said, is the slowest on the grid. And yeah, George, we all know he's very talented. He's done everything he could with the machinery that he had. He's able to get that Williams consistently into Q2, and I'm going to put him in the great category. Sorry for not saying. In the races, his race pace was a little bit wanting. We obviously know that he's slightly better over one lap. His race pace will come with experience. The low point of the season for him has to be crashing under the safety car at the Imola Grand Prix. That was definitely very disappointing. He got quite a lot of criticism for that, but he bounced back a big time when he was standing in for Lewis Hamilton and got the opportunity of a lifetime to drive the Mercedes at the Sakir Grand Prix. Let's not talk about the atrocious luck he had with Mercedes botching the pit stop and then getting a puncture. Both of those not due to his own fault, which is why he could only get 9th position. But during that weekend, especially in the race, he definitely outpaced Bottas. He was leading for most of the race. He had a great overtake over his teammate, was really close to him in qualifying. There's no denying that this guy is a talent. He's made a great case for that Mercedes seat in 2022, and I can imagine that he will be partnering Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes in 2022. That is my prediction. Next up, we have Antonio Giovinazzi. He was 17th with 4 points. I'm going to put him into the average category. Giovanetti's 2020 is like the definition of having an average season. He hasn't really done anything great, but at the same time, he hasn't done anything too bad. Really, just average. I mean, I don't remember anything noteworthy that he's done, really. I'd say that he improved compared to last year, especially in comparison to his experienced teammate Kimi Räikkönen. They were pretty evenly matched this season. And I think he's done really just a bare minimum to keep his seat. I agree with the decision, to be honest, to keep him on for 2021, but he's definitely going to have to step it up next season if he wants to keep his seat beyond 2021 with all of the talented Ferrari juniors rising up the ranks like Callum Ilott, Robert Schwartzman, Arthur Leclerc. They're going to be making a case to get into F1, so he's definitely going to have to step it up if he wants to be at Alpha in the long term. Next up, we have Kimi Räikkönen. He was 16th on 4 points. I'm also going to put him into the average category. There was very little, between him and his teammate. They were very evenly matched over the season. And again, Räikkönen didn't really do anything noteworthy. He doesn't have a great car, to be honest. There's not much more he can do. He's just doing it, as a hobby, as he said himself. He's the oldest driver on the grid. Overall being solid, giving the team solid experience, that's really all I can say about him. Not great, not terrible, just average, really. 14th place in the championship on 32 points is Daniel Kvyat. He is going to go in the good category. I'd say he had an interesting season. I think at the start he definitely struggled quite a lot. Gasly was definitely the better driver of the two AlphaTauri drivers. As the season went on, though, Kvyat definitely got to grips with the AlphaTauri car. He was much closer to Gasly in the latter stages, so that is good. But that uptick in performance came too little too late, really, because Yuki Tsunoda, the Japanese driver, was announced as Kvyat's replacement for 2021. So yeah, it is going to cap off an interesting career for Kvyat. Again, staying in F1 for the time that he did is quite a good achievement in itself, especially in the harsh environment that is the Red Bull family. But yeah, just I guess the highlight of his season has to be that 4th place at Imola, that really impressive safety car restart passing, I think, Ricciardo and Albon. So yeah, no denying that Kvyat is a good driver. I don't think he deserves to be booted out of F1 like this, but at the end of the day, Formula One's a business, only 20 seats, and if you're not at the top of your game, you're going to be out pretty quick, and that's basically what has happened with Kvyat. All right, so 13th place, 33 points, we have our man Sebastian Vettel, and there's no denying he's had a horrific season in 2020. First driver I'm going to put in the bad category. Really pains me to do this, but there's really no excuses for Seb at this point. I guess you can tell that he's really just done with Ferrari at this point. He's done with Ferrari like many of the other world champions have been. I guess he's gotten to that stage, really. And yeah, he really can never get to the grips with the tricky to handle SF1000. We know that Vettel generally lacks adaptability. He has quite a narrow working range. When he does get into that working range, he is unstoppable. But when he's not comfortable with the car, he's quite a different driver, and he's definitely uncomfortable with the car this season. But, it's really surprising that he's really struggling so much because he's a 4-time world champion. He is the 3rd most experienced driver on the grid, but, he really still struggled so much. All the spins, all the mistakes, it's really just continued into 2020 and was really as bad as it's ever been. I mean, there have been a few moments, where we've seen the old Sebastian Vettel assigned that, the Sebastian Vettel of old, the 4-time world champion we all know, that it's still there, especially with that podium in Turkey. That was a very impressive drive, but really that was a rare occurrence this season. He was thoroughly beaten by Leclerc. Disappointing season. That's why he's in the bad category. I'm really hoping he can bounce back. I really do think he can in the new Aston Martin environment, but we'll have to see how he does for 2021. But that is Sebastian Vettel, first driver in the bad category. All right, so 12th in the championship on 62 points is Esteban Ocon, and he is going to go in the average category. So I think that Ocon's had a bit of a disappointing return to F1 in 2020. I definitely expected him to be closer to Daniel Ricciardo. If you don't know, I released a video a while ago saying that, it's a really crucial year for Ocon in 2020. Can he prove that he is a top driver, that he should be regarded as a future world champion? he clearly has not met those expectations this season. He's been handily beaten by Daniel Ricciardo. In fact, it wasn't even close between them. I mean, he did improve a little bit as the season went on, but that's about it, really. I think mainly the year out of F1 seems to have really affected his development as driver. So, yeah, I think he's really gotten unlucky with teammates. He's had Perez, Ricardo, next year Alonso. So it will be interesting to see how he stacks up against Alonso. I don't think in 2020 he's done anything terrible, anything to justify him being kicked out. I think he needs more time, but in 2021, I do think he does need to step it up. Otherwise, his seat could be in jeopardy because there are lots of great drivers that are looking for seats right now. 11th place in the championship was Lance Stroll on 75 points, and it's been a very interesting season for Lance. He's definitely had his ups and downs, but overall, though, I think it's been a big improvement over his previous season in 2019. So I'm going to put him in the good category. He definitely started off the season very strongly. He was pretty much matching Sergio Perez. His qualifying and race pace looked a lot better compared to last season. Obviously, things took a bit of a turn when he got COVID. He missed a few races, and then in the latter half of the season, he suffered some atrocious luck. Nonetheless, he still had some great performances, like getting that pole position at Turkey. I mean, that was crazy. Unfortunately, in that race, he had some wing damage, so he could only finish 9th. Also getting a podium at the Sakir Grand Prix, which was also very impressive. So overall, I think that Lance Stroll has definitely had a good season. I think he's silenced many of his critics who previously only dubbed him as a paid driver. He is a paid driver, but let's not forget that many drivers in F1 have been paid drivers, and I think he's one of the best paid drivers, actually, and I think the main thing that Lance has to work on is his consistency. I think, what's weird about him is that, under these crazy conditions, like in the wet, like he's always very good in the wet, under the crazy conditions is actually where he excels, but he can actually seem quite average, in the normal, less challenging conditions, which I find very weird. So if he works on his consistency, then I think he can mold himself into a driver that is there more because of his talents rather than just because of his dad's money. But yeah, that is Lance Stroll in the good category. It will definitely be interesting to see how he stacks up against Sebastian Vettel at Aston Martin in 2021. But that is Lance Stroll. Next up, we have Pierre Gasly. He finished 10th in the championship, also on 75 points, and it's been an amazing season for Pierre. It's really been a bounce back season after the lows and the agony of getting dropped by Red Bull midway through 2019. So I'm going to put him in the amazing category. Definitely had an amazing season. That's our first driver been put in that category. He has been sublime in that AlphaTauri. The car definitely suits him better than it did at the Red Bull. He looks like a completely different driver, really less pressure, more relaxed. He's able to get the maximum performance. He's handily beaten Kvyat throughout the season. And yeah, obviously we can't ignore that special win he had at Monza. We all know the last driver who won at Monza for Toro Rosso, that is obviously Sebastian Vettel. He ended up being pretty good, that's for sure. So yeah, Pierre's had a great season, definitely salvaged his career after the low of being dropped by Red Bull. And yeah, let's see if he can find a good seat outside of the Red Bull family, and he's in for a pretty solid career if he's able to. 9th place in the championship was Lando Norris. He finished on 97 points, and I'm going to put him into the good category. I rate Lando very highly. He's a pretty highly rated prospect, definitely one of the most popular drivers on the grid, and for good reason. He has a very interesting personality. He's definitely very good on the track. Great qualifying pace. Overall, just a really good driver. His highlight of the season was definitely that podium at the first race in Austria, which feels like forever ago for some reason. But yeah, he had a really, impressive final lap, I remember, to get final lap and get that podium. And overall, I think he's just been solid for McLaren. His solid performances, along with him and Sainz, have allowed them to get P3 in the championship. So he is in the good category. Alright, so 8th place with 98 points is Charles Leclerc, and this guy has had an Alonso-esque season. The man managed to put a tractor onto the podium twice and drag it to 8th place in the championship, so for that alone, you get to go in the good category. Leclerc has been amazing this season despite having a horrible car, one of Ferrari's worst Formula One cars in their history, to be honest. It's been a terrible season for them. But Leclerc was one of the few bright spots in that season. He managed to get 2 podiums, I believe, 8th in the championship, which is very impressive. We all know how good of a driver he is. It's a big shame that a driver of his qualities in the midfield, he definitely deserves to be fighting in the front. So let's hope Ferrari can get their act together and give him the car that he deserves to fight for wins and championships. The only reason why I don't have him in the very top category is just that a few times this year he's had a few reckless incidents, like in Styria where he crashed into his teammate on the first lap. Also, a few races ago in Bahrain, causing that first lap incident. So, just a few small incidents here and there, just showing his inexperience. He definitely needs to iron that out, but I do think that will happen as he gets more experienced. But yeah, still, nonetheless, a great season for Charles Leclerc. Alright guys, so 7th place, we have Alex Albon, and actually right now, at the time of recording, I think he just got announced that he lost his Red Bull seat about 10 minutes ago. And yeah, unfortunately, Alex, I'm going to have to put him into the bad category. He's had a quite disappointing season. He's had a really tough season. I honestly feel bad for the guy. He was thrusted into that Red Bull seat way too early. He clearly wasn't ready. And I said this a long time ago. I've been saying it for a long time. You can't expect a driver with only half a season of experience to perform at a high level at a top team. I'm sorry. It's just nonsensical. It was nonsensical to move him up in the first place. I don't think we expected him to struggle this much, but really, it's just been a lack of progression that's disappointing. He's not even able to get close to max on any occasion. He's been beaten, I think, 17-0 in qualifying, 11-0 in the races where neither of them had problems. So, yeah, it was a disappointing season for Alex. The season was definitely worse than he is as a driver. I do think he has talent, and like Gasly, in the right environment, he can be a good driver, but Red Bull at this time clearly is not the right environment for him, and that is why he has been dropped. So yeah, unfortunately for Alex, he's going to have to be in the bad category, but he definitely deserves another shot at F1. I do hope he gets it because he's a talented prospect, and a few more years, and I think he can mold himself into having a successful career in Formula One. In 6th place, we have Carlos Sainz, who finished with 105 points, and I'm going to put him into the great category. There was very little, between him and his teammate Lando Norris. I feel like Lando is just at the top of the good category, but then Carlos just about scrapes into the great category. I think he just ever so slightly had the edge over his McLaren teammate. He really came into his own in the second half of the season. He finished in the top 6 in 6 of the last 7 races, which was very impressive. The first half of his season, he had some atrocious luck. But despite that, he still had a very good season, finished very high in the championship. So it shows, even if you have bad luck, if you persevere like he did, if you put in the performances, the results will eventually come. And that's exactly what happened, really. It's a shame, I guess, that he's moving to Ferrari. It's very weird that I say that. Hindsight is a powerful thing. Who would have guessed that McLaren would actually be a better team than Ferrari going into the 2021 season? Absolutely no one. He's basically warming the seat for Mick Schumacher or Robert Schwartzman at Ferrari, but nonetheless, it will be interesting to see how he stacks up against a very strong driver in Charles Leclerc. Will definitely be an interesting pairing to watch out for in the midfield. But yeah, that is Carlos Sainz in the great category. In 5th, we have the Honey Badger, Daniel Ricciardo, and he's going to go straight up into the amazing category. There's no doubt about it. Despite that, I think he's gone slightly under the radar, to be honest. I guess that's mainly because he's in Renault. He's no longer in a top team. He was fighting in the midfield. His performances did go under the radar slightly, but the man's just bossed the midfield. Basically got fifth in the championship in the 5th best car, which is a very big achievement. Soundly beat his teammate Ocon, who is no slouch really, but I think this season Ricciardo really proved why he is a top driver and why he should be given a championship contending car. Even with me, I think he definitely surpassed my expectations with him being in the midfield. I kind of forgot how good he is. I guess this season has served as a bit of a reminder. But yeah, just a really good season for Ricardo. Even managed to get the podium. We finally saw him do a shoey for the first time in a few years. So yeah, great season for Ricardo. Great top driver, top guy in general. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he can do at McLaren in 2021. In fourth place, the winner of the midfield battle, the best of the rest, on 125 points, is Sergio Perez. He's definitely going to go into the amazing category. He has to be the driver of 2020, really. He has really come into his own in the second half of 2020. He has been stellar. And he's obviously known as one of the best drivers up until this point to never get a chance at a top team. He spent his entire career in midfield teams. That is obviously going to change in 2021. As you know, he is going to be a Red Bull driver in 2021, and he's finally been rewarded for all the performances that he's put out throughout his career, and definitely in the second half of this season. He's had definitely a pretty good car in that Racing Point. He has definitely capitalized it using all the qualities that he has as a driver, his incredible consistency, his race pace, his impeccable tire management. It's really resulted in having a great season, an amazing season. Having that win at the Sakir Grand Prix, it was very special. For the longest time, it looked like he was having the best season of his career and he was going to be out of F1. That is obviously no longer the case, and I am super excited to see what he can do at Red Bull in 2021. They finally have a more competent second driver who can actually give Mercedes a strategic headache. So that is going to be very exciting. We are now at the business end of these rankings. So P3 in the championship on 214 points is Red Bull's Max Verstappen. So I'm going to put him straight into the amazing category. Verstappen is really a driver that needs absolutely no introduction. We already know how good he is, and he has been absolutely stellar in 2020. I think what's really most impressive about this season is that he could get so close to the Mercedes in a clearly inferior Red Bull. Like in the championship, he only finished 9 points off of the Mercedes of Valtteri Bottas, and that is after 5 race retirements that I don't even think were his faults. They were either due to mechanical failures, and 2 of them were due to first lap crashes that, again, weren't his fault. And also, the fact that he didn't have a driver, a teammate who would take points off of Valtteri and give Mercedes a strategic headache. It was 1 Red Bull versus 2 Mercedes. So Verstappen has really been carrying Red Bull this season. Again, like I said, has been very impressive. And one thing we really all need is Verstappen versus Hamilton in a straight up championship fight. They're clearly the 2 best drivers on the grid. So Red Bull, I hope you're listening. Let's please give Verstappen a championship contending car sometime in the next few years so we can see that epic championship battle that, I'm sure will go down to the wire if it does happen. But yeah, that is Verstappen. P3 definitely had an amazing season. Second place is Valtteri Bottas on 223 points. He is going to go into the good category. I think he's just done exactly what Mercedes have asked of him, exactly what he expected of them. He's been a reliable number 2 driver to Hamilton. He's there to pick up that P2 in the championship, which he ultimately did. He's quick enough to challenge Lewis on occasion, but is not too fast where it does cause instability in the team like it did when Hamilton and Rosberg were all there. He's just a safe option. We all know he's pretty much a known quantity at this point. I wouldn't say it was his strongest season, though. That's why he's only in the good category. Last year, I think, was better. That's why I had him in the great category. Last season, I think, he tends to just fall off the pace a little bit as the season goes on. I definitely do think that that is what has happened. But I guess it's just the reality of, having to go against one of the greatest to ever do it, which is obviously Lewis Hamilton. It makes you look average. Valtteri Bottas is by no means average. He's actually one of the best qualifiers on the grid, believe it or not. He's able to get, within 1 or 2 tenths of Lewis on most occasions. So that is quite impressive. His race pace definitely isn't on the same level, but yeah. That is Valtteri Bottas. Overall, a good season. We know that he's never really going to beat Hamilton. All he has to do is get that P2 in the championship, really. And finally, first, the champion, we have Lewis Hamilton, and he is also going to be the amazing category, 5th driver to go in the amazing category. As expected, really, he has had a near flawless season. I think The only mistake really that I can remember was when he punted off Alex Albon at the first race and he got a penalty for that. Other than that, he has been stellar. He has been amazing. It is definitely one of the most dominant seasons. He's put in some stonking pole laps, has had some amazing drives, like when he won by over 30 seconds in the wet conditions at the Turkish Grand Prix. That was very impressive, and he was actually on to break the record for the highest win percentage over the season, which was 75% by Alberto Ascari in 1952. But unfortunately, Hamilton got COVID, so he had to miss the penultimate race in Abu Dhabi penultimate race in Bahrain, and clearly was not at full fitness for Abu Dhabi. So that unfortunately derailed the push for that record. But it doesn't really matter. He already has a record for most podiums, wins, equal the record for most championships. So I think he's okay with that. And yeah, really, just another amazing season for Hamilton. It's what we've come to expect of him after winning all these championships, and he is really just continuing that legacy, furthering his reputation as one of the greatest Formula One drivers to ever drive in the sport. So guys, that's going to do it for the 2020 edition of the F1 tier list. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to comment your thoughts on my rankings below. I know you probably disagree with some of these, so I'm really excited to hear what you guys think in the comments. If you do enjoy the content, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel, Kids Love F1. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. You can also follow me on Twitter. That will be in the description. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.